They say the river chooses who it saves. Some nights, when the moon spills white fire across the pines and the wind slips through the canyon like breath through hollow bone, Snake Willow Creek remembers the living. On such a night, it rose from its silence, shivering beneath the stars, and delivered a broken body to the feet of a man who no longer believed in rescue. Takana Red Elk was not startled by the river's offering. He had seen stranger things in the land between dusk and dawn. Spirits trailing their fingers along cedar trunks. Crows that whispered names not yet spoken. Once, he swore his brother's laughter came from beneath the ice, though his brother had been dead near a decade. Tash no longer questioned the world's hidden edges. He simply watched them pass. That was his way. So when the pale figure drifted ashore, tangled in lace and blood, he only rose and stepped into the current. She was small and still, a slip of a girl dressed in yesterday's finery. Her skin had gone ghostly under the moon, lips cracked like dry earth. A sharp stone had split her brow, and her wrist twisted the wrong way. Yet she breathed, shallow, stubborn breaths. He touched her neck, felt the flutter. Alive. He cradled her gently, as he would an injured hawk, and brought her to his fire. The flames danced, casting the canyon wall in gold and shadow. He laid her near the warmth, wrapped her in buffalo hide, and gave her silence. Not prayers. He had no words left for those. Just this slow offering of his presence, and the weight of memory. She woke with a gasp hours later, reaching for something unseen. Easy, he murmured, not moving. You're safe. Her eyes found him in the dark. Pale green, rimmed with fear and pride. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He passed her the tin cup. She drank, eyes never leaving his face. Who are you? She asked. Takana Red Elk. What is this place? Snake Willow Creek. Northern Bend. She winced as she tried to sit. I don't remember how The river brought you. She looked away. Then it has poor judgment. Tash said nothing. Did you touch me? He nodded. To pull you from the water. You were near gone. She studied him, as if expecting cruelty. When it did not come, her gaze lowered. Clara May Delaney. Tash stirred the fire. The wood hissed softly. He knew the name, not from fame, but from whispers. Willow's Edge was not kind to girls like her, pretty and proud, whose sins were always louder than the men who caused them. He gave her food, set it close without demand. She sniffed it, as if expecting poison, then ate in silence. For 2 days, she did not speak of what sent her into the current. Tash did not ask. Pain, he'd learned, flowered in time. For now, her ankle needed tending. Her eyes needed rest. He watched her through the corner of his gaze, how she flinched at every gust of wind, how her hand hovered at her throat in sleep. Her fingers bore calluses, but her dress was stitched with expensive thread. A girl caught between worlds and drowned by both. On the third night, a storm rolled in, lightning dancing like spirits across the ridge. Clara jolted awake with the first thunderclap. Tash was already stoking the fire. She sat beside him, the hide drawn around her shoulders. I should be dead. The river thought otherwise. She glanced at him. You talk like it's alive. He shrugged. Everything's alive, even the things we forget how to see. Silence pressed in, thick and wet. Then, her voice quiet, I ran. He looked over, but she did not meet his eyes. I ran from Willow's Edge. My mother said I shamed her. The preacher called me marked. He stood on the pulpit and read my name like a curse. The boy. He told everyone I begged him. Tash didn't speak. She went on. I packed a bag at dawn. Walked until I couldn't feel my legs. Got lost. Slipped on the bank. Maybe I jumped. I don't know anymore. Rain fell, soft as breath on her face. I wasn't trying to die, she whispered. I just didn't want to be Clara May Delaney anymore. Tash passed her a piece of carved wood. A raven, wings spread mid-flight. She stared at it, then at him. You make these? He nodded. To keep the silence company. She didn't thank him, but she kept it close. By dawn, the storm had passed, but something in Clara had shifted. She asked about the canyon, the trees, the birds. He answered in short, sure words. She listened more than she spoke. There was grace in her restraint. But peace, he knew, was a brief guest. It arrived in the form of a rider that evening, silhouetted against the horizon. Tash saw him coming, blue uniform coat, holster loose. Sheriff Abram Cutter, snake-hearted, willow-tongued. The man dismounted slow, boots cracking dry earth. "Red Elk," he called. Tash stood at the edge of the camp. Clara sat behind the lean-to, hidden by canvas and brush. "You harboring someone don't belong to you?" Cutter asked. "She came in the river," Tash said. "Word in Willow's Edge is she ran off with some redskin lover. Preacher's out for blood. Mama's riled the church folk. Said she's bewitched. She's not bewitched. Don't much matter what you say. White girl goes missing. Ends up in a heathen's tent. Town's already decided the ending." Clara stepped into view. Her chin lifted. Her voice was steady. "I'm not missing." Cutter blinked. "Miss Delaney, I'm not property. I'm not confused. And I'm not going back. You don't get to choose that." "I do now." Her voice cracked just once, but her eyes never wavered. Cutter looked between them. "They'll come for you. Let them," she said. Tash saw it then, the line of steel beneath her pain. Not stubbornness. Not pride. Survival. Cutter spat into the dirt. "Hope he's worth it," he said, and turned his horse back toward the ridge. As the hoofbeats faded, Tash looked at Clara. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." She sat beside him, breath unsteady. "I'd rather die honest in the canyon than live quiet in their cage." The wind rose, rustling the pines. The river shimmered with moonlight again, murmuring low and sweet, like it was listening, like it remembered. And the night wrapped around them, not like a threat, but a promise. The days that followed folded like a worn map, creased, uncertain, yet somehow guiding. Clara woke with the rhythm of dawn, her breath still catching at the first bird call, as if expecting some cruel voice behind it. She moved slower now, but with intent, stubborn as frost clinging to spring grass. Her ankle, though still swollen, bore her weight in cautious steps. Tash had carved her a crutch from cedar. She had accepted it without thanks, but she used it. They shared few words, but their silences changed shape. What once was wary became companionable, the kind of quiet that only strangers-turned-survivors can share. He taught her the songs of distant owls, the signs in bent grass, and the difference between a coyote's cry and a liar's promise. She listened, not to learn, but to remember she was still allowed wonder. At night, they sat by the fire. Clara, still skittish in her dreams, sometimes woke with a choked gasp. Tash would not speak. He'd simply stoke the flames higher, let her see she wasn't alone. On the sixth night, as rain hissed beyond the lean-to, she whispered, "I never really liked dresses. Mama made me wear lace to keep the gossip quiet. But it never did." Tash looked up from his carving, a fox this time. "Didn't stop them, did it?" "No, just gave them something prettier to rip apart." She reached for the fox, traced the smooth lines of its back. "I think I like it better out here. I get to be unmade." "Unmaking is the start of most things," he said, his voice gentle as dusk. Clara didn't reply, but her fingers curled tighter around the fox. By the eighth day, the town sent more than just words. They came at dawn. 3 riders, dust-crusted, hat brims low, rifles slung careless across saddle horns. Men shaped like mountains but colder. Tash saw them from the rise above the canyon and knew them by name. McAllen, Thorne, and Elric Cobb. Hired men, the kind who never spoke unless Coin did the asking. He returned to camp, his boots quiet but firm. "Trouble?" Clara asked, already standing, the crutch tight beneath her arm. 3. Likely not here to talk. I can hide." Tash shook his head. "They'll find the tracks. This land listens, but it doesn't lie." Clara nodded once, jaw tense. "Then we stand." Tash didn't smile, but something flickered in his eyes, an ember of pride, maybe. He handed her a small knife. Not for war, but for dignity. When the riders arrived, they dismounted slow, circling the camp like wolves testing a fence. Well, Elric sneered. The river really did spit her up. Clara stood firm. "Go back to Willow's Edge. Tell them I ain't theirs." McAllen chuckled. "You don't get to leave shame behind, girl. That kind sticks." Tash stepped forward. "She's not going back." Thorne, the quietest of them, tilted his head. You got a death wish, Red Elk? No, Tash said, but I've seen death. Yours doesn't scare me. They didn't draw yet. They weren't here for a fight, unless one came easy. You ain't law, McCallan said. Neither are you. We were paid. Then steal from the river. Maybe it'll pay you in ghosts. That gave them pause. These were men raised on pulpits and prairie myths. They didn't believe in spirits, but they feared them. Elric stepped forward, hand grazing his rifle. She comes with us. We could do it quiet or loud. Clara didn't flinch. You'll carry me back in pieces then. That's the only way I go. Silence bloomed, heavy and thick as storm heat. Then Thorn spoke, voice low. This ain't worth it. Elric turned. Coward. No, just not stupid. Tash watched the fracture unfold like ice breaking underfoot. McCallan spit. To hell with it. He raised his gun. The world slowed. Tash moved, not fast, not loud, but with the force of gravity. He knocked the barrel aside, just as it flared. The shot cracked through the trees, sending a blue jay shrieking skyward. Tash drove his fist into McCallan's throat. The man stumbled, coughing blood, and collapsed to his knees. Elric drew too late. Clara, knife in hand, sliced at his side. The blade caught flesh. Elric screamed, dropped his weapon. Thorn stepped back, hands raised. No more, he said. We ride. Now. He grabbed Elric by the collar. We ain't paid enough to fight ghosts and girls. McCallan lay wheezing. Clara stood over him, trembling. Next time, she said, you won't get the soft version of me. They left without another word, dragging pride and blood behind them. When silence returned, it was not peaceful. Clara dropped the knife. Her hand shook violently. Tash approached, touched her shoulder. She leaned into him without shame, the way a storm breaks against a mountain. No apology, only need. I thought I was brave, she whispered. You were. I was terrified, still brave. The fire crackled beside them, and something in her unclenched. That night, she didn't sleep by the fire. She slept beside him, close enough to hear his breath, to know the world hadn't swallowed her yet. And in the distance, the river sang its low hymn again, of sorrow, survival, and second chances. By the 12th morning, the chill in the canyon had softened into something almost gentle. Spring bled through the pine needles, the ground giving way to tiny bluebells and muddy footprints. Life, it seemed, refused to wait for safety. It bloomed anyway. Clara now walked without the crutch. She still limped, favoring the ankle that met the river's rocks, but she refused help. Tash watched her from a distance, quietly, like he might spook a deer too close to healing. In her walk, there was defiance. In her eyes, something new had taken root. Not peace, not yet, but dignity. Each day, she wandered further into the woods, collecting herbs he named, pressing leaves between pages of a worn hymn book she never opened for prayer. She had stopped asking permission. Tash never gave it. He simply watched and ensured the fire was still burning when she returned. That night, as they shared a stew of roots and squirrel, Clara said, I remember when I thought silence meant weakness. Tash looked up. And now I think it's a kind of armor. You wore it long before I did. I wasn't given a choice. You still wear it well. He said nothing, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Later, as shadows swallowed the canyon, she stood by the river and asked, Did you ever run from something? Tash didn't lie. From everything once, until I had nowhere else to go. She nodded slowly. Same. Their reflections danced beside one another in the current, her hair unbound, his face weathered and unreadable. They looked nothing alike, but somehow they belonged to the same silence. Trouble returned with the sound of church bells. They heard them the next morning, faint, distant, unnatural in the wild hush. Clara froze mid-step. Tash paused his carving. Bells didn't ring that long in celebration. Not in Willow's Edge. They're calling the town, she murmured. A gathering. For you? For judgment. Tash stood, expression hardening. They'll come. This time not with warnings. What do? He met her eyes. We don't run. Clara inhaled slowly. Then let me prepare. For 2 days, she cleaned the camp, arranged supplies, and sorted roots with the precision of someone bracing for siege. Tash offered no comfort, only presence, as sure as stone. On the third day, they came. Not riders, not thugs. The whole town, dozens of them, in wagons and on foot, women in bonnets, men with hunting rifles, children with hard eyes. At the front rode Preacher Wyman, narrow-faced, voice loud enough to split trees. Behind him, Mrs. Delaney, Clara's mother, dressed in mourning black, though no one had died. Yet, Tash and Clara stood side by side at the mouth of the camp. No barriers, no weapons in hand, only fire behind them and wind in their hair. Preacher Wyman dismounted, Bible in one hand, shotgun in the other. "Miss Delaney," he said with the tone of a verdict, "you are summoned to return under your mother's care." Clara didn't flinch. "I decline. This is no request. You have shamed your blood. You've consorted with a savage. You've brought scandal into the house of the Lord. I brought truth. You brought sin." "She saved herself," Tash said. His voice didn't rise, but it cut clean. The crowd stirred. Whispering, rustling. Not all of them agreed, but none stepped forward. Mrs. Delaney's eyes brimmed with unshed tears, but her mouth was a steel line. "Clara," she said, "come home. You can still repent. We'll forget all this. You can start over." "I did start over," Clara said softly. "The night the river didn't kill me." "She's bewitched," someone muttered. "A woman doesn't walk away from the church unless something twisted her," said another. Clara stepped forward, her dress plain now, her hair braided down her back, her hands steady. "You all know who he is. You've seen him trade hides in the market. You've taken his medicine when your sons were sick. You didn't call him savage then. You just called him invisible." Silence thickened. No one spoke. "Now you see him because I stand beside him. Now you call him the devil because you're afraid I became my own." Mrs. Delaney's hand trembled. "I did everything to keep you pure." "No, Mama," Clara said, voice cracking. "You did everything to keep me small." Then she turned to Wyman. "I will not return to a pew that made a weapon of your God." Preacher Wyman raised the shotgun. "You've made your choice, girl." In that moment, time slowed again. Tash moved in front of her. The gun did not fire, because Clara's mother stepped forward and placed her hand on the barrel. "Enough." Wyman turned, startled. "She's not property. She's not yours to punish. If she's damned, let the Lord handle it." He hesitated, then lowered the weapon, disgust curling his lip. "I wash my hands of this," he muttered. "You both will rot." "Then let us rot in peace," Clara said. One by one, the townsfolk turned. Some spat, some cried, some looked away, ashamed. But no one fired a shot. When the last wagon rolled out of sight, Clara collapsed to her knees. Not in weakness, but in release. Tash knelt beside her, not touching, only near. She looked up at him. "I didn't win them." "No," he said. "You didn't need to." And in the quiet that followed, the river laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, just enough to remind them both. Survival was its own kind of victory.